Every single week, NASCAR's own president sits down and talks about Nashville. And every single week, the answer is the same. It's not happening yet, and nobody can really explain why. That's where we are right now with the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. There's a real buzz building around NASCAR coming back to this historic track. Fans are hyped, drivers are talking, and even the president of NASCAR just opened up about it. But there's one big problem standing in the way, and it's starting to feel like a wall nobody can climb over. Let's back up for a second so this all makes sense. The Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway is an old-school track with deep roots in racing history. But here's a wild fact that might surprise you. The last time a NASCAR Cup Series race ran at this track was all the way back in 1984. Geoff Bodine took the checkered flag that day, and fans have been waiting exactly 42 years for another Cup race. That's a really long time to wait for the big boys to come back. Things started looking up in 2021. The former mayor of Nashville, John Cooper, announced that the city had signed a letter of intent with Bristol Motor Speedway. The plan was simple. Fix up the Fairgrounds Speedway, get it ready for modern racing, and bring NASCAR back to Music City. Fans were thrilled. Finally, some real movement. But then nothing happened. Well, not exactly nothing. There have been talks, there have been meetings, there have been plans on top of plans. But years later, this whole thing still feels stuck in the mud. Some people call it a work in progress. Others say it's more like a work in limbo. And honestly, that second one feels more accurate at this point. So, what's the holdup? A lot of it comes down to the new mayor. Freddie O'Connell is the current mayor of Nashville, and he sees this renovation differently than his predecessor. He thinks the city has bigger fish to fry. In his view, there are more important issues facing Music City than fixing up a racetrack. He's been really hesitant to fully commit to the project. His reasons come down to two main things. First, protecting taxpayers. He doesn't want the city spending a bunch of money on something that might not pay off. Second, noise complaints from people who live near the track. Apparently, folks in the area aren't exactly lining up to hear engines roar every weekend. But here's the thing. A lot of people really want NASCAR back. There's still a strong fan base in Nashville that loves racing. And inside the racing world itself, there's a big group of people pushing hard to make this happen. Drivers, team owners, former stars, you name it. They all want to see cars ripping around that historic track again. One of the loudest voices in all this is Steve O'Donnell. He's the president of NASCAR, so when he talks, people listen. He recently went on the Door Bumper Clear podcast to share his thoughts on what's happening in Nashville, and he didn't hold back. Something else happened recently that got everyone talking again. Dale Earnhardt Jr. helped bring the Cars Tour to the Nashville Fairgrounds this past weekend. That event was a huge deal. It reminded everyone just how much life this old track still has in it. The crowd showed up. The racing was great, and it got people asking the same question again. Why can't NASCAR come back here? The event also got NASCAR legend Kenny Wallace pretty fired up. He didn't mince words when talking about Mayor O'Connell. Kenny basically told the mayor to get his head out of his rear end about the whole situation. That's how frustrated people in the racing world are getting. Now back to Steve O'Donnell. When he was asked for an update on the Nashville situation, here's what he said. Listen, it's been a weekly dialogue, right? I know Speedway Motorsports President and CEO Marcus Smith is trying to get there. It's an uphill battle, which I don't understand. When you think about the noise and everything, I mean, they've got concerts at the adjacent Geodis Park and all kinds of stuff. They've got soccer, but it's tough right now. And honestly, he makes a really good point. Right next to the racetrack is a place called Geodis Park. That stadium holds around 30,000 fans. It already hosts concerts. It hosts soccer matches. Tens of thousands of people show up, and there's plenty of noise involved. So why is racing the problem? If concerts and soccer games work just fine for a crowd that size, why can't cars race there too? It just doesn't add up. But O'Donnell made it clear this isn't a simple fix. If it was, he'd be fighting way harder to make it happen. The frustrating part is that every time things seem to move forward, something else pops up and knocks the whole project backwards. Here's more of what he shared. Nashville is one of our most historic tracks. We'd love to be there. We'd love to be in both places in Nashville, including Lebanon's Nashville Superspeedway. It's a great market. They built the soccer stadium really right on top of the racetrack. It didn't allow for a lot of movement. That was the first red flag. That's a big deal right there. When the soccer stadium was built, it was placed so close to the racetrack that there's barely any room to work with. You can't really expand the track. You can't really change much about the layout. O'Donnell called it the first red flag, and it's been a headache ever since. He kept going. Then there's a pretty vocal group there about noise ordinances and what you could do. There's a lot of plans that have been put together on what we could do to offset some of that. It's always been there. It's been a disappointing battle. So, NASCAR has actually put together real plans to deal with the noise. They've come to the table with solutions. But there's a loud group of people in the community who just don't want racing there, no matter what, and their voices have been blocking progress the whole way. For fans who love racing and live in the Nashville area, this is seriously disappointing. They just want to watch great racing at a historic track in their own backyard. Instead, they're stuck in the middle of a political fight that doesn't seem to be going anywhere. But O'Donnell isn't giving up completely. He's hoping that the recent Cars Tour event might actually help turn the tide. When a bunch of fans show up and prove there's real demand, it's harder for politicians to keep ignoring the issue. Here's what he said about that. Obviously, we've got a lot of hardcore fans there. I was glad to see the Cars Tour go there. It was a great crowd, which was awesome. So hopefully that builds a little more momentum and gets Nashville stock car racing back in the limelight, especially from the media. That's the hope right there. Keep the conversation going. Keep the media paying attention. Keep proving that fans will show up when given the chance. Maybe, just maybe, all that pressure will eventually move the needle. But as it stands right now, nothing is guaranteed. The mayor has other priorities. The noise complaints keep coming. The soccer stadium already boxed in the track. And NASCAR keeps running into the same walls over and over again. So here's where things stand. NASCAR wants to come back. The fans want NASCAR back. Drivers and team owners want it. Even the president of the sport is publicly saying he wants it. But the city leadership and a loud group of locals keep putting on the brakes. It's the definition of an uphill battle, and right now, nobody has a clear path to the top. The Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway sits there, full of history, full of potential, and empty of the one thing it was built for, real NASCAR Cup racing. Until something big changes, that's probably how it's going to stay. And for a track that hasn't seen a Cup race since Geoff Bodine won there 42 years ago, that's a tough pill to swallow. Steve O'Donnell summed it up perfectly when he called it a disappointing battle, because that's exactly what this feels like for everyone involved. A disappointing, frustrating, endless battle that just won't end.